When was the first time you began to suspect there's really something wrong with the world? How often has that happened to you since then? And what have you done with that suspicion? That's what I'd like to talk about today. Let's take a closer look. Hi, I'm Jesuit Father Robert McTeigue, your host every day at the Catholic Current, coming to you from the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. We're glad that you are here with us today. You can follow our video on our iCatholic Radio YouTube channel, and this audio will be available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Let me tell you a story. When I was really young, uh, maybe 5 or so, my mother had told me, God rest her soul, she told me that keeping my room clean would make the house warmer in winter and cooler in summer. And even at that very young age, I had a sense, I said, even if one of those things were true, and I doubt it, I don't see how they could both be true. And that's when I began to suspect there was something wrong with the world that we lived in. Fast forward a little bit, I am in kindergarten, and it was really clear to me, even at age 5, that my kindergarten teacher very much didn't like children. I learned later that she had tripped over a Lego or a Lincoln log and blew out her ankle and walked with a cane and had a war against children ever since. But one of the reasons I knew that she was probably not suited for the classroom, aside from the constant yelling and screaming and badgering, was that her husband was a judge and her judge had given her a gavel. And when she, I think the social scientists use the term decompensated, she would take out the gavel and just start wailing on the desk like this, so that over time the desk looked like it had been chewed by some kind of a monster. And I tried to explain this to my parents and other adults. And the way that I described how the corner of the desk looked was chewed by a monster, I said, I was like that big hairy monster that used to chase around Bugs Bunny. It looks like it was chewed on by that monster, but it was done by the monster who is my kindergarten teacher. And my parents and other adults laughed at me, says, "Oh, look at him! Look at the vocabulary of that little boy!" But nothing was ever done. And over time, especially in my experience in the educational system, I began to suspect that something was really wrong. When I was in high school, my teachers told me, treasure these years because your high school years are the best years of your life. When they told me that, I said, then I need to talk to the management because I want a refund. This is miserable. Apparently, the people telling me that high school years are the best years of your lives, well, they never sat in on my gym class, which seemed to be a recreation of the dystopian novel The Lord of the Flies. And I can't help but think back to high school gym class, and there was a guy who was a real demon when it came to playing dodgeball. He had deadly and brutal accuracy and velocity. Fast forward many years, and I'm visiting my parents in New Jersey. And in New Jersey, you may not know this, you can't pump your own gas. Someone from the gas station has to pump it for you. And fill it up, please, regular. And I look at that guy and I said, hey, that's the guy who all those years ago prided himself on being a terror and playing dodgeball. And now he's pumping my gas. Now, the unredeemed part of me wanted to say, hey, remember me? I have 4 university degrees and I read 5 languages, and you're pumping my gas. Who's winning now? But I didn't say that. My guardian angel put a wing over my mouth. But I think back to college, and I was a freshman thousands of years ago in 1979. And I thought it odd that a good number of people were taking remedial math classes and remedial writing and reading classes. And I said, this is a university and we're all high school graduates. Why are some people taking all these remedial classes? And I was told, don't worry, it's just the scholar athletes. It'll be fine. It's only for them. Many years later, as a teacher, I saw that every year a greater and greater percentage of all of our students, and not just the scholar athletes, needed remedial classes. So that college became kind of a second chance at high school, just a lot more expensive. And that got me to thinking that something is wrong. When I first got out of graduate school, I was an administrator at a law firm, and I was working with a group of junior attorneys one night to get bunch of documents copy bound and out the door before midnight because court something or other. And then we made the deadline. We all breathed a sigh of relief. Then I asked, kind of tongue in cheek, but was justice served? And this young attorney, she smiled at me and she pointed at my naivete and she said, "Justice doesn't have a billing number in this firm." Oh, fast forward a few years, I'm working at a pretty high-end research firm, and my boss ran up to me and he said, "Did you do it yet?" And I said, I don't know. What are you referring to?" And he said, "You know." I said, "No, no, I don't know." He said, "It." I said, what are we referring to?" He goes, "Oh my gosh, now I have to do it. Thanks." And he walked off in anger. And I said, "Gosh, I must be a jerk. I didn't do it, but I don't know what it is." And I got to the point in my life as a young man in my 20s where the worst part of the day was going to bed at night, because going to bed was the last thing I did before I woke up in the morning. And nothing was worse than waking up in the morning. It got so bad, I got to the point I was really this close to just selling everything I had, getting a passport and a backpack, and disappearing. I remember having dinner with a friend of mine at that time, and I said, in the long run, I don't expect to be happy. I've been lucky so far, but I don't think life is going to turn out well for me." And she got angry with me and said, "Who told you that?" And I said, "Well, just look at my life. Um, what I value, what I aspire to, what I hope for, what I need, there just doesn't seem to be a place for me in this world. I don't expect to be happy." 4 years later, I was walking up the front steps of Starfleet Academy of the Jesuit novitiate. What happened? Well, I discovered St. Ignatius Loyola and his spiritual exercises, and some good Jesuits who introduced me to both. And there was St. Ignatius, who gave this vision of someone who wished to distinguish himself in the service of Christ the King, and to have a good reason to live and a good reason to die. And the prospect of scooping up all of your life and offering it to Christ and have it received by Christ and then used by Christ for his kingdom. And even as a young man, I looked at this and I said, how could a sane man understand this and not want it? So off I went. And really, my story isn't unique. I think of a dear friend I've known many, many years now, and she stopped practicing the faith sometime in late high school, went to college, and lived according to the standards of the world, and not surprisingly ended up very miserable. And then one day, somehow, she picked up the encyclical Evangelium Vitae, the Gospel of Life by John Paul, and she said to me, "Father, the scales fell from my eyes, and I realized that everyone and the world was insane, and only in the church can sanity be found." So, my point is this: it is not an uncommon experience to suspect that there's something very, very wrong with the world we live in. We live in a fallen world, in a world full of sinners like you and me. And the remedy for all that is Christ. Now, I know that as a result of what some historians call the Enlightenment, we would just get rid of Christ, we get rid of faith, we get rid of the church, we get rid of natural law, we get rid of morality, we get rid of worship, we get rid of the transcendent, and then we'd all live happily ever after. Of course, it didn't turn out that way. And I can't help but recall Chesterton, who said that those who leave the tradition of truth do not escape into something we call freedom. They only escape into fashion. And the fashions around us now claiming varieties of victim status, sterilizing and mutilating our children, not knowing what a woman is, redefining marriage, all those things, those are signs of fashion, and those are signs of madness. So, yes, there really is something wrong with the world. One more quote from Chesterton before I wrap up. There was an essay contest in a British newspaper. You had to write a letter to the editor explaining what is wrong with the world. And Chesterton said, if I remember accurately, "Dear sirs, what is wrong with the world? I am. Sincerely yours, G.K. Chesterton." What's wrong with the world is that I'm a sinner and you're a sinner, and we are surrounded by sinners. Our hearts, our wills are weakened, our intellect is darkened. We want things that are not good for us, and we reject Him who is the way, the truth, and the life. So today, let's get sane. Let's reconsider what Christ has revealed to the church He founded. And following the recommendation of Pope Benedict XVI, let's start by looking at the lives of the saints and the very great art that has emerged from the church. My addition is then look at all the people we know who are miserable, including the people that you and I meet in the mirror every morning. And let's look at the ugliness in the world and begin to see yet again that Christ gives us an alternative to misery, and the alternative is life within the church that He founded. Think on these things today, take them to prayer, and talk about it with those you love. I'm Jesuit Father Robert McTeigue, your host here every day of the Catholic Current. You can find us thestationofthecross.com, the iCatholic Radio mobile app, and all your favorite platforms. Join us on Mondays and Wednesdays, the iCatholic Radio YouTube channel for more videos like this. Like and subscribe, go in peace, and please do pray for me, for I am a sinner.